Hello, welcome back. I was in Sri Lanka all week last week and did some surfing, snorkeling, got a bit of a tan as well. Just beachy stuff in general. And I was playing a game with my friends where the question was if you could experience one thing in your life all over again, what would it be? And the first thing that came to mind was Elden Ring. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Elden Ring is a game that changed how I look at video games. I played it at a time where most AAA RPGs felt repetitive, empty, bland. It felt like eating dog food for every meal. You would eat the same slop over and over again if you're hungry enough. And I don't know if that analogy works. Like maybe dog food's delicious, but you know what I mean. So I played Elden Ring at a time where I had stopped enjoying most AAA games. Like I would play some indie games here and there, like Hades. I'd jump back into retro stuff like Pokemon, Castlevania, Metroid, and um, those experiences would be way more fun compared to the slop that the industry was pushing out. I'm talking about games specifically such as Assassin's Creed, the Horizon games, Hogwarts Legacy. Some of them are not coming to mind, but I'll list them here later on. And these kind of games are basically the same game. Like it's the same experience in a different skin. And I'll elaborate on what I mean by that. So I saw this clip on Instagram of a guy describing Miyazaki. He's the guy behind all of the From Software games, Sekiro, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and he says that being alive at the same time as Miyazaki is how he would imagine being alive at the same time as Shakespeare or Michaelangelo or any other great artist would be like. And I totally agree with that. I feel like people who are not playing From Software games are robbing themselves of an exquisite experience. But before I talk about what makes Elden Ring so great, I want to discuss what was wrong with gaming at that time, and somewhat still is. The examples I will use are games such as Horizon Forbidden West, every single Assassin's Creed game, Star Wars Outlaws, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and I might get some hate for this, but even the Ghost of Tsushima games. And you'll notice that most of my examples here are Ubisoft games, and it's not only because I have a personal hatred towards the trash they publish. It's also because I think they are the personification of everything that's wrong with the industry right now. Every game they push out is actually the same game, wrapped in a different skin. And it makes you feel like you're playing something fresh because they will associate themselves with an IP such as Star Wars or Avatar. But that game will be the same. Like the bare bones of that game will be the exact same experience. Now let's break that down. So why are these the same game? If you were to strip down the games of their story, visual, characters, setting, you would notice that the formula they're using is the same across all of these games. And here's what it looks like. You boot up the game, you do some tutorial, and then finally the open world experience starts. And the open world is basically a huge map covered in a lot of icons. And these icons are one of two types. The first one is a activity or a point of interest, like climbing up a tower to unlock a portion of the map, or meeting someone who asks you to collect something for them, or clearing an enemy camp, or finding a shop or a vendor where you can trade items. And the other type of activity is a side quest. And a side quest is basically just a series of missions which individually involve doing the same stuff as like an activity. Like somebody will ask you to clear an enemy camp, somebody will ask you to go and collect something, someone will ask you to escort them somewhere. The type of mission is the same, but it's a series of them, and there is typically more dialogue wrapped around it, and some NPCs quest line will progress forward in those side missions, and all of this is in addition to the main story. And each of those activities give you some XP. Those XP help you level up, like invest in a skill tree. I hate skill trees, by the way. I will get into that later. But these activities level you up as a character, so you can do harder activities of the same type. So here's what the gameplay loop looks like. You go to a marker, do that activity, gain XP, level up, and then go to a different marker, do the same activity, but it's just slightly harder. Now, this formula doesn't make the game inherently bad. My problem is that it makes everything in the game very repetitive. There is nothing new. Like in the first 10 hours, you've basically played the game. Like if you're ignoring the main story, you've experienced pretty much all the game has to offer. It's just that when you level up, you do the same activities again, but they're slightly harder or in a different part of the map. And this becomes bland after a while. I also want to get into some detail about the overly used mechanics plaguing this genre. I already talked a little bit about the open world formula, and the problem is that these games boast about having an expansive open world, and a couple of years ago, that this doesn't happen that much now, but a couple of years ago, games would boast about having this big of an open world. And the problem there is that the actual fun to be had in that open world only exists on those markers. And the time you spend traversing from point A to point B is largely boring. RDR2 is a great example of this. Some people would disagree with me, but a large portion of that game is just spent on your horse going from point A to point B. Fast travel in that game is also not easy. Like, you have to go to a stagecoach and pay for whatever location you want to get to. You can also fast travel when you're camping, but the problem there is it's a list of locations. You can't see the map when you select fast travel, which is just a stupid feature in my opinion. My point was, in most of these games, you spend a lot of time going from point A to point B, and usually there's nothing interesting between those points, like between those markers on the map. So that open world might as well not be there. And this might be a very strong take. I know there are people who enjoy just admiring the beauty that the game has to offer, and yeah, it is kind of fun, but that does get boring after a while. In order to progress in the story, it's not like you can ignore these side activities altogether, these repetitive tasks. The story mission would require you to be at a certain level, and the only way you can gain XP and reach that level is by completing these repetitive side activities. And honestly, like, once you've done those activities enough times, you really don't want to do them again, and it feels like a list of chores when the game expects you to complete them just so you can get back on track and enjoy what you actually started the game for in the first place. Like, you're sitting there with the controller in your hand, bored to tears, and just trying to finish a side activity to gain enough XP to reach that level to progress further in the story. Even just thinking about it makes me snooze. Another mechanic I hate in modern gaming is skill trees. Now, these skill trees often give you an illusion of choice. Most of the skills in that tree boil down to either damage buff or a health increase, or maybe a new attack animation which basically does the same thing, it just looks totally different. And a lot of the time, I hate this the most, skill trees will give you quality of life improvements, like a movement speed increase. Movement speed cannot be a skill. Like, you can't expect players to spend time grinding in the game, gaining XP, to invest in something that is actually a quality of life improvement. It doesn't enhance your gameplay in any way. It doesn't give you new ways to, complete challenges or just have more fun with the game. It is something that just makes your life easier. And expecting players to do side quests, gain a certain amount of XP, and unlock that in a skill tree is honestly quite insulting. Another problem with modern skill trees is that by the end of the game, if you've completed all of the activities, you can unlock every skill the game has to offer. And usually there is only one optimal build. So your unique build ends up becoming the same as everybody else who's playing the game. Another pet peeve I have, which has become very common lately, is the heightened senses mode. Like, I'm talking about Eagle Vision in Assassin's Creed, or detective mode in the Arkham games, or the Horizon Focus. Basically what happens is you press a button, the color washes out, and all of the objects of interest light up. And you're no longer engaging with the environment, you're just looking for glowing objects and moving towards them. And you would notice that in a lot of these games, you're spending maybe half your time in that heightened senses mode. And it's not like you're in the game anymore, you're just, putting a filter on it. So all of the objects you would want to get to are highlighted, and you're just traversing through them mindlessly. I see this as the same thing as having so many icons on the map. Like, after a point, you're not engaging with the world itself, you're just looking at the markers and they become your points of focus. Like, you're straight up just walking towards them, ignoring everything else on the way. And it really takes away from the fun to be had in a video game. Now, I'm not saying this heightened senses mode is always bad. Some games implement it really well, like The Last of Us. This mode helps you identify zombies, identify if they're getting closer, and just avoid them, and it adds to the stealth gameplay. And the same goes for detective mode in the Arkham games. It exists to help you solve those stealth arena challenges, and it is a crucial part of the game. But in games like Horizon, The Witcher, Assassin's Creed, this mode is basically pressing a button and playing the game on easy mode. You're no longer finding anything. You're just you just look at the highlighted object and move towards it. Another thing I have grown to hate in this genre is inventory management. A lot of these games such as Horizon, Witcher, Cyberpunk, Skyrim, or any other Bethesda RPG will fill the world with objects, right? And you can pick up these objects. Sometimes they are useful, sometimes they are just an interesting book you can read. Sometimes they're literally junk, like a, a mug or an apple, or sometimes it will even just say junk in the inventory, and they serve absolutely no purpose. Well, some of the food items you can consume to gain HP, but nobody's doing that playing those games. Like you already have items that increase your health. Nobody's going in the inventory and looking for food like a sandwich or an apple to increase their HP. That almost never happens. These objects are truly redundant. And what's sad is a lot of the players' time is spent clearing their inventory or managing their inventory. And here's what the inventory management loop becomes. You finish a quest, go to the hub area, and decide which items to sell, which items to dismantle, or which items to drop. And it really is no fun. Inventory management is never fun, and it's shocking how much time one can spend doing that. A specific example I want to talk about is from The Witcher 3. You will often find yourself picking up a weapon which is of a higher level, and you can't use that weapon yet. So what you'll end up doing is storing that weapon in a stash. And when you finally reach that level, you will pick that item up again from the stash. Why do you store that item in the stash in the first place? Is because you can't carry it with you. It has a certain weight, and you can't store enough objects in your horse's saddle. So you have to do this process of going to the hub area, going to the stash, storing that item, and then coming back when you finally have that level. And this whole process is such a snooze. It is better off not being in the game at all. Like, why does this stash exist in the first place? Why not just let the player keep that item in the inventory and only have its weight count when that item is equipped? I really don't get it. It's beyond me. Now that I have discussed all of the mechanics and all of these formulaic techniques these games use make a game inherently bad. A lot of the time, if somebody is playing an RPG for the first time ever, these features allow for readability, like a quest log, or having a way to view your entire inventory, or having icons on a map. They make just understanding the game a little easier. And a lot of the games that follow this formula are actually pretty fun games, like the Arkham games. The combat is fun, the stealth gameplay is fun, or Spider-Man, for example. Spider-Man is super formulaic, but the traversal and the combat and the story make up for it. Cyberpunk 2077 as well, like the world it is set in makes you feel invested. And there are different things working for all of these kind of games. But here is the claim I'm making, which might sound a little bit bizarre, but these mechanics and systems, the quest logs, icons, repetitive side missions, inventory management, don't act like guides nudging you in the right direction. They often are so tedious, they become the game itself. A majority of your time is spent doing that. And it's taking away from the fun because the game does not trust the player. It feeds you everything and shoves it down your throat, and you very quickly become overwhelmed with it. Like, the game is telling you exactly what to do, exactly where to go and how to do it, and it strips away agency from you as a player. You're just completing a list of tasks. You're not crafting an adventure for yourself anymore. And once you notice that, you're just sitting there in front of a screen with a controller and you're dead inside. You're just complying with whatever the game tells you to do. And that's the feeling I was left with when I was playing most AAA games in 2022, and I had started to lose faith in gaming as a hobby. I had thought I wouldn't be enjoying any AAA games coming in the future because of how sad the state was of the industry in general. I only thought there was fun to be had in smaller indie titles until Elden Ring came in. Now, what makes Elden Ring so great? I will admit I'm a little bit biased because that game just swooped me off of my feet and put me, it felt like I was playing video games for the first time. I had not had that much fun playing something since I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. This game just blew my mind, and Now let's discuss what made this game so much fun. The first and most crucial thing that I think works in Elden Ring's favor is that it gives you true player agency in a lot of ways. The first of which is the joy of discovery and adventure. The game shows you the map and just says go. Like you can go anywhere, explore anything, and there's always things to discover, and they're very evenly spaced out. And the game is designed so well that every direction you take, there is always something to be found there, and it's always something fun. The game rewards the player for their curiosity. Instead of walking blindly towards a marker on the map, you're exploring everything. You're making sure you're not missing anything. And each time you find something, you're overcome with joy. It makes you feel like you're having an adventure. And the game rarely tells you what to do. You are free to go wherever you want and discover whatever the game has put in place for you. The other thing is there is true versatility when it comes to builds. Unlike traditional games where you unlock everything that the skill tree has to offer and every player character ends up becoming the same, Elden Ring forces you to choose between attributes, like where you would want to invest your skill points. For example, you have to choose between strength or dexterity. Strength is heavier weapons and slower attack times. Dexterity is lighter weapons, quicker attacks. And the same choice you have to make between faith or intelligence, between incantations or sorceries. And by the end of the game, the build you end up with is truly unique. It's very different from other players, and it suits to your playstyle. And there is real choice there. It really does feel like you are crafting your own adventure and your own character throughout that journey. And these two things, the build versatility and the design of the open world, the way the game rewards you for curiosity, the feeling that you're crafting your own adventure and your own character, these give you true agency as a player. Unlike other games where you're just blindly following the path the game has laid out for you, it really feels like you've built your own story throughout that experience. The other thing Elden Ring does really well is the combat. And this is true of every other FromSoft game as well. The rhythmic combat makes you totally engage with the game. There is no blind button mashing, and the enemies are not damaged sponges. Every fight is about timing. You have to be patient. You have to know when to dodge, when to find an opening, when to strike, when to back away, and when to punish. It's an intricate dance between you and the boss, and it keeps you on your toes. Your whole attention is in the fight itself. I watched this video once of a Doom Eternal developer describing how they designed the gameplay and what made it so much fun. And one thing he said was, if you're not thinking, you're getting bored. And I think that analogy fits really well with the combat and From Software games. Every time you're in a boss fight, you're totally in there. You're logged in. You're not, button mashing or waiting for the enemy's health bar to go down by just holding a button. You and the enemy are working together, and that's what keeps it so much fun every single time. All of the bosses are not stat checks, they're skill checks. What do I mean by that? In most games, if you are of a high enough level or if you have a weapon that is leveled up, you can chew through bosses. But that's not true with Elden Ring. In most cases, like there are ways you can cheese bosses, and that doesn't always happen. Like in a typical player's experience, that's never going to happen. But the bosses really check your skill. You go into an arena for the first time and you don't know what the boss's moves look like. You try to learn those moves, you adapt. With every failure, you learn something. And that's what makes you want to keep coming back. And once you accomplish that challenge, once you beat that boss, the feeling you're overcome with is of immense joy and just a feeling of accomplishment. I remember when I was trying to beat Ishin Ashina for the first time, the Sword Saint, Sekiro final boss. I struggled for 3 days straight, but I could see that with each of my attempts, I would pick up on something new, and I would like find new ways to either counter him or dodge his attacks, and just learn something new each time. And I think this whole process also mimics how people should treat failure in real life. Like every time you fail, you have to identify what you learned, and you have to keep coming back. And this iterative process is what keeps the combat so much fun. And I have never felt so happy after beating a From Software boss. Like that feeling hasn't been replicated in any other video game. The final thing I want to talk about that works in Elden Ring's favor is how they deal with their story and world building. Elden Ring does its story in a very unique way, and so does every other From Software game. It's got very interestingly written characters, and there is environmental detail. The story is to be discovered through just the environment, the way the NPCs talk, and item descriptions. And as a player, if you don't give a shit about the story, you can totally ignore it. It's not shoved down your throat. If you are interested in the story, which I would suggest that you do if you're playing a From Software game, you can piece it together for yourself. You grab an item, you read the description, and it gives you a piece of the puzzle. And part of the fun is to put that puzzle together by the end of the game. So as much as I love Elden Ring, I know it's not a perfect game. Like, if I had to give it a score, I would give it a 9.9 out of 10. And it is the only game, in my opinion, that comes this close to being like the perfect game, like a masterpiece. And there are a few things that the game does not do that well. The first of which is the way it handles side quests. This brings me back to my readability point earlier, like about having a quest log and just having a descriptive menu. From Software games don't do that, and side quests can be a little difficult to track. Like, you don't know where the NPC is going to pop up next, and what exactly is the next step to progress that quest line further. And I often found myself referring to guides online to complete those side quests. And I think From Software can maybe do a better job at fleshing those quest lines out. But it's just a small criticism I have. The other one is some bosses can be incredibly hard. Ishin the Sword Saint, pre-nerf Consort Radahn. These guys are a huge challenge. Ishin not so much, because I think Ishin you can really beat with enough skill. Pre-nerf Consort Radahn would just not give you any openings at all. And I remember struggling with him for like weeks. I even tried like summoning other players to help me out, but it was so hard to beat that boss. So some bosses can be like an immense challenge, but I think that's also part of the fun, like learning those bosses, finding different ways to beat them. But I do think it's a valid criticism that some bosses are just too hard. The final complaint I have for Elden Ring is the loot issue. Like, once you've made a choice of what your build is going to be, maybe you're a dex and intelligence build, you go into a dungeon, you complete that dungeon, beat the boss, and then you're dropped. Then the item that gets dropped is a sword that requires 50 strength. Now, what are you going to do with that item? You can't do anything with it because your build is completely different. Now that item is going to be just sitting in your inventory for the rest of the game. So that also I feel like is a valid concern, but I also realize it's just the nature of the game. I can't think of ways to solve this problem, but yeah, it does get annoying. Anyway, my point with this whole video was Elden Ring reminded me that AAA RPGs can actually be fun, and they just need to steer away a little bit from the UB type formula, and it is possible to create actually fun games. That's about it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.